皆様、本日は
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us with the Trilateral Symposium on IP and environmental issues. We would like to start the event with the greeting remarks from the three organizers, JPO, EPO, and USPTO. First, Mr. MORI Kiyoshi, Commissioner of Japanese Patent Office, will deliver the speech.
Hello, everyone. My name is MORI Kiyoshi, Commissioner of the Japan Patent Office. Thank you for joining the Trilateral Symposium on IP environmental issues today. And we would like to thank Mr. Antonio Campinos, President of the EPO, and Mr. Drew Hirshfeld, Acting Director of the USPTO, and their staff for co-hosting this event. In addition, this symposium is supported by each association of the trilateral industry and WIPO. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all those involved. Firstly, I would like to mention the heart-wrenching situation that is happening in Euglena. It goes without saying that peace is a necessary basis for innovation. Today's symposium is taking place thanks to the cooperation between Antonio, Drew, and myself. Mr. Stefan Rowan, Vice President of the EPO, will deliver and remark on behalf of Antonio. Our DG of WIPO, Mr. DarenTang, will deliver the keynote speech today. Again, I appreciate these relationships and sincerely hope stability will come back to the world soon. The issue of climate change is becoming more recognized as a global challenge common to all humankind. And we must aim to realize a carbon-free society. To this end, it is important to further innovate and implement carbon-neutral technologies into society as much as possible. Therefore, as IP officers, we would like to discuss how we can best contribute to the development and diffusion of various carbon-neutral technologies by utilizing the IP system that will be a driving force for innovation. The JPO is currently working on the creation of the Green Transformation Technologies Inventory, GXTI, which is a technology inventory list that provides an overview of climate change countermeasure technologies. This is expected to be used as a common asset, which takes a broad view of the status of innovation in climate change countermeasure technology from patent information. This will be done by providing it to the world as a set with a patent search query. GXTI views climate change technologies from several broad technological perspectives, including every supply, energy demand, and greenhouse gas recovery and utilization, and lists the important individual technologies in each technical perspective as technological categories. In addition to these technological categories, we also have introduced supreme harmonized perspectives that are common to these categories, such as business perspectives on payment, authentication, etc. In the fiscal year that will start from next month, the JPO will publish this GXTI in advance and then use it to conduct the patent application technical trends survey to provide an overview of climate change countermeasure technology. And among them, there is a hydrogen ammonium technology, which has been attracting particular attention in recent years. In terms of the technology, we plan to conduct a detailed in-depth survey to analyze the status of innovation in this field and provide results. I would like to introduce another initiative. In 2013, WIPO launched WIPO Green based on a concept proposed by JIPA, Japan Intellectual Property Association. This is a platform that supports the development and dissemination of green technology. Especially, the number of Japanese users and partners of WIPO Green is the largest in the world. As a partner, the JPO has supported its activities. For example, in June last year, the JPO held an international IP symposium on WIPO Green in cooperation with WIPO and JIPA. We also support several projects of WIPO Green through voluntary contributions to WIPO. Moreover, the JPO has set up a web page introducing WIPO Green-related activities that have been endorsed by our Japanese partners. Many carbon neutral technologies have already been registered in the WIPO Green database, including technologies to obtain energy from clean sources such as wind and wave power, and technology to enhance the efficiency of energy transfer and storage. However, there are still a large number of remarkable technologies in the world other than that have also already been registered. In today's symposium, we will provide examples of companies that conduct innovative utilizing IP to develop and disseminate such carbon neutral technologies. I hope that this will provide a guide for the utilization of IP rights to solve environmental issues. Through this symposium, I hope that the trilateral offices continue to collaborate with WIPO and industries and facilitate the development and dissemination of various technologies that find a solution for environmental issues through IP. Also, it will be beneficial if the audiences attending this symposium will get some valuable information. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mori, Commissioner of JPO. Next, I would like to call upon Mr. Stefan Rowan, Vice President, Patent Granting Process, EPO. Mr. Rowan, floor is yours.
Dear Commissioner Mori, and hello to everyone, and our warmest thanks to the Japan Patent Office for organizing today's event at a time when mitigating climate change is rightfully a top priority on the global agenda. And right from the outset, and on behalf of our President, I would also like to very much echo the initial comments of Commissioner Mori. Our position is also very clear on sustainability, that we can only achieve a sustainable world if we have a peaceful world. There is already a well-known correlation between conflict and environmental degradation, and all efforts must be made to achieve a world without violence, primarily for the welfare of our fellow people, as we've seen in Ukraine, but also because we've reached a turning point in history when it comes to the health of our planet. On top of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, which has claimed millions of lives globally, the health of our planet is also under threat. The climate change crisis is leading to a rise in the average global temperatures, extreme weather events, ocean acidification, and coral bleaching. And all of these phenomena are confronting us with unparalleled challenges. As Commissioner Mori said, going carbon neutral is no longer a nice to have. It's paramount to the future of our planet and for the generations to come. We have to change radically how we look at these challenges, and innovation is indisputably a vital part of that answer. Technological advances are emerging everywhere to help us to find a way forward, from vaccines developed based on messenger RNA to carbon dioxide-based polymers that make plastic more sustainable, and flexible solar cells that allow portable devices to self-charge. In terms of sustainability, the good news is that global patenting in low carbon energy has been on the rise in recent years, whilst patents for fossil fuels technology have declined sharply. Europe is one of the global leaders when it comes to investing in green innovation and clean technologies like offshore wind, but more efforts will be required. A study we conducted last year with the International Energy Agency on batteries and electrical storage shows that much faster progress in hydrogen, smart grid, carbon capture, and energy storage technologies is still needed. And crucially, we have to support the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals, adopted back in 2015, and which offer a global framework for promoting prosperity while protecting the planet. So how can we help innovators to find solutions that address the UN goals, especially in fields that are crucial to sustainability, like global health and decarbonizing the economy? We see high quality patents as clearly part of that solution, because by ring fencing innovation to the right degree, this legally robust IP can help innovators to turn groundbreaking ideas into added value and real world solutions. In Europe, we know that innovation is largely driven by small and medium-sized companies, SMEs. So reaching out to those SMEs is essential. That's why our recent efforts have focused on revamping our network of patent information libraries, known as PatLibs. Some 300 of these are spread across Europe. And here we can provide local access to advice on patent statistics, patent strategies, and guidance on commercialization and technology transfer, and really show how patents can help businesses to upscale, just like Orkan did. Orkan Energy is a German renewable energy company that offers standard components for heat power generators that recycle waste heat by turning it into electricity. Later on, we'll be hearing from Andreas Schuster, Orkan's Chief Technology Officer and co-founder. To combat the high risk of its standard components being copied, Orkan filed 8 early patents. Ownership of these patents was crucial to help it attract funding. Going forward, we need to help more companies, and especially SMEs, to leverage the power of IP rights and repeat Orkan's success story. Given the pace of technological developments, we also have to make sure that our patent granting process, the way we organize ourselves, matches the patent landscape and the increasing number of applications for sustainable technologies that cut across the traditional sectors. And that's exactly why our core business has been reorganized. Our examiner teams have been restructured into technology communities that are aligned with the 14 industrial ecosystems identified by the European Commission and with the achievement of the UN Sustainability Development Goals. It helps us move away from the mindset that we're only granting patents for a given technology, and instead focus on the fact that the whole patent process is contributing to a more sustainable future. At the EPO, we also believe that everyone in the innovation ecosystem can contribute to the conversations on patents and sustainability, especially given the right platform. That's why we're planning to launch a Patent and Innovation Observatory later this year. Its role will be to encourage and support data-driven discussions on trends, on developments in the patent landscape, and to create a deeper understanding of key issues related to the future of innovation and technology, including, of course, sustainability. So to close, I'd like to thank the JPO once again for organizing this inspiring event and assure you of the EPO's fully commitment to using our knowledge within our organization and the wealth of knowledge available in patents to create that safer, smarter, more sustainable world to which we all aspire. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, next speaker is representing the US the Patent and Trademark Office, Mr. Hirshfeld, acting director.
For all of you tuning in from around the world, thank you for joining today's Trilateral Symposium on Intellectual Property and Environmental Issues. Commissioner MORI and the staff of JPO, thank you for organizing today's event. And to our friends at the EPO, including, of course, President Campinos, I'm grateful for your participation. In fact, I'm grateful for the Trilateral's participation in this event, and more broadly, the Trilateral's focus on this important issue, IP and the environment. I'd also like to welcome WIPO Assistant Director General Kwakwa and Director General Tang. It's wonderful that you're a part of today's symposium. And I certainly want to welcome today's inventor speakers. Your work is both impactful and inspiring. Let me start by sharing how deeply saddened I and my USPTO colleagues are about the war in Ukraine. This is a difficult time, and we hope for an end to this war and a return to peace. We support the people of Ukraine. Today we have an impressive lineup of speakers from our trilateral jurisdictions who will highlight IP's essential role in deploying innovation that reduces carbon emissions. I'm honored to be part of the Trilateral and to work with WIPO to highlight and take action on this issue of importance to all of us. I note that next year will mark the 10th anniversary of WIPO Green, quite a wonderful achievement. The USPTO is committed to seeing WIPO Green's expansion, starting with today's symposium. Just a few weeks ago, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released its 6th assessment report describing the impacts, adaptation, and vulnerabilities of climate change. It's an extensive and a sobering study. We know that IP is critical for financing R&D and commercializing and licensing innovative energy-efficient products and processes. We also know that it's essential that IP rights are granted in a timely fashion, that they are predictable and enforceable. At the USPTO, our prioritized patent examination program that we call Track 1 accelerates patent examination for individuals and companies. So far, through the first half of our current fiscal year, under Track 1, the time from filing to issue or abandonment of applications is, on average, 9.9 months. We have already received over 6,000 Track 1 requests so far during our current fiscal year. While the applications in Track 1 are from all technologies, we are expecting to have a prioritized examination program dedicated solely to inventions that benefit the environment. We are in the planning stages now. In addition, last year the USPTO created an internal climate working group to review past and current sustainability efforts and to explore new opportunities. This group is assisting the USPTO to not only be greener ourselves, but to explore any and all ways we can facilitate green innovation. We are considering a new green tech module to add to the successful COVID-19 Patents for Partnership program. This program provides a user-friendly, searchable repository of patents and published patent applications that are available for licensing. And we are looking at a new award program dedicated to patents related to sustainability. Finally, it's important that we not lose sight of the progress being made with the new technologies that our IP offices and our examiners have helped nurture. This year in the United States, solar power is projected to account for almost 50% of all newly installed utility-scale electric generating capacity. Wind power is expected to represent 17% of new electric generating capacity, and battery usage will grow to account for 11% of all new capacity that is added this year by electric utilities. Combined, those new sources of clean energy total about 34 gigawatts, or the equivalent of about 34 large nuclear reactors. This is approximately 3/4 of all new U.S. electric generating capacity installed by utility companies. But we know there is more to do, and we have to do it quickly. So thank you to all the participants in today's symposium for your devotion to the IP system and the advancement of technology. A special thank you to today's presenters. We look forward to hearing your stories. And thank you again to all of you at JPO, EPO, and WIPO for being such good friends and colleagues. We look forward to our continued collaboration, including our collaboration to highlight our fantastic innovators and their contributions to society.
Thank you very much. Now, we would like to introduce Mr. Tang, the Director General of the World Intellectual Property Organization. His video clip is now introduced. Thank you.
Commissioner MORI of the Japan Patent Office, President Campinos of the European Patent Office, Director Vidal of the US Patent Office, dear delegates, dear colleagues. It is a pleasure to join you at this Trilateral Symposium on IP and the environment. Ladies and gentlemen, our planet is under mounting threat. Over the last 50 years, the global surface temperature has increased faster than at any other point in the last 2,000 years. Sea levels are rising around the world. Water cycles are intensifying. permafrost is melting, and extreme weather events are multiplying. The recently released IPCC report makes it clear that 40% of the world's population is highly vulnerable to climate change. The danger is real and it is urgent. But I still believe, as do many of you, that it's not too late to tackle this existential issue. If we act now and act together and implement the commitments of COP26, it is still possible to put the world on a more sustainable footing. Innovation and intellectual property have an important role to play in turning these ambitions into action. The global IP system is a key factor in supporting green innovation and creativity around the world. It creates incentives for public and private R&D investment into environmentally friendly technologies and solutions, and it helps to translate basic research into tangible climate change adaptation and mitigation solutions. Critically, the IP system also helps developing and least developed countries to acquire green technologies through tech transfer and licensing. Policy measures such as the fast tracking of green patents will speed up the time it takes to bring innovative new ideas to the market. And patent filings by themselves generate a vast treasure trove of information that is open and accessible to all. So the challenge for the global IP community is not only to sustain and build on this work, is to bring this work out of the shadows and into the light. And it's by connecting with a broader range of stakeholders and by developing practical measures that lift up individuals and communities around the world that we show how IP is advancing the social good and helping us to combat climate change. Fostering a more inclusive IP ecosystem, as well as sharpening the impact that IP has on the ground, is what drives our work at WIPO and in many of your offices. Amongst the initiatives we have includes WIPO Green, our online platform for technology exchange for green technologies. Of course, there's no shortage of new green technologies in development, but their adoption and their diffusion can sometimes struggle to keep pace with the scale of the climate threat. This is true, especially in many developing countries, which often require support to integrate green solutions into their industrial practices. WIPO Green bridges this gap by connecting providers of green technologies at all stages of development with those seeking environmentally friendly solutions from all over the world. Not only does this facilitate tangible partnerships on the ground, but it also helps to ensure that technology adoption matches local needs. And this is crucial because while climate change is the very definition of a global challenge, we know that the most effective solutions are those tailored to specific conditions and local contexts. Today, WIPO Green comprises of more than 120,000 technologies and needs for solutions, with registered users from over 130 countries. Moreover, our acceleration projects support the development of green solutions in particular regions or areas of technology where they can have the greatest impact, such as the palm oil industry in Indonesia or climate-smart agriculture in Latin America. As we strengthen WIPO Green, collaboration and partnership will continue to be the bedrock of our work. For example, we recently launched a new project, IPO Green, to further assist IP offices in the promotion of green technologies, and we are developing a new green finance initiative. Later this year, we will also publish a new flagship publication, the WIPO Green Book, which will showcase technologies and solutions for climate change adaptation and mitigation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is by supporting the development of breakthrough technologies that we can guard against climate breakdown. Around the world, IP is already playing an important role in accelerating progress towards a cleaner, greener planet. But there's no room for complacency. In fact, we need to be moving on this on all fronts in an urgent fashion. So the global IP system must continue to be innovative in a way that it supports green technology development. We must remain open to new partnerships and new forms of collaboration. And we must explore IP's role in enabling co-creation and innovative licensing agreements. WIPO is committed to working with green innovators, other international organizations, NGOs, and key partners such as the JPO, the EPO, and the USPTO to speed up the transition to a green global economy. And like you, we are as resolute in our determination that IP will continue to play an important role in securing a more sustainable future. Congratulations once again on this important and timely symposium, and let me wish you our best wishes here at WIPO for a successful and stimulating program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, we would have presentations by companies each representing the trilateral jurisdictions that have been developing and disseminating carbon neutral technology. And we will have Q&A that will follow each presentation that will be moderated by Dr. Edward Kwakwa, Assistant DG, who oversees the global challenges at WIPO and who has expertise in IP, environmental and legal affairs. So first, representing Japan, Mr. IZUMO Mitsuru, CEO and founder of Euglena, will do presentation. Mr. IZUMO, floor is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you in my country, Japan. Thank you very much for having me the great opportunity to share what we do and the company, Euglena Corporation Limited. I'm Mitsuru IZUMO. I'm the president of the Euglena Corporation Limited, and I'm running a bioventure company since 2005. Today, I'd like to talk about two things. I'm going to divide my part into the first half is, of course, what we do and what Euglena is. We are producing sustainable aviation fuel and biofuel as well, extracted from the Euglena microorganism. So I'd like to talk about what Euglena is first. And next, I'd like to show the latest trend and the progress in the field of the biofuel in Japan, especially second generation biodiesel fuel and sustainable aviation fuel. I'm going to touch in the last half. Let's move on to the next slide, please. The next slide, please. Okay, my company, Euglena Corporation Limited, is the startup venture company originated from the University of Tokyo Agriculture Department, 2005. And the company is the world's first company succeeding in the outdoor mass cultivation of the microalgae Euglena for food use and biofuel use as well. And we did IPO, initial public offering, 2012, and we were the first company to become to be upgraded to the first section of Tokyo Stock Exchange 2014, and we are currently a listed company on the TSE. And back to the passion of the foundation of the company. When I was a student, I was the first grade student in the University of Tokyo. I visited Bangladesh. You know, Bangladesh was still regarded as the one of the first country in South Asia. And at the time, I saw the real poverty issue there. There are so many carbohydrate and rice. But the people in Bangladesh, they couldn't access to the fresh vegetables, milk, many other proteins, animal proteins, and other dietary fibers. They couldn't access to the fresh, nutritious food items at all. So when I came back to Japan, and I decided to solve the malnutrition problem in developing countries. And I joined the research project of the Euglena. Next slide, please. Euglena, you can see the in the left side picture shows the Euglena. The length is only 0.1 millimeter. It means that we can't see directly Euglena in the pond, in the river, in the sea. We should use the microscope observing the Euglena. very tiny microorganism. You can see Euglena is a green colored. Euglena has chlorophyll. Euglena can do photosynthesis by capturing carbon dioxide and to produce hydrocarbon and many other animal proteins as well, like other plants. What makes Euglena unique is that Euglena is a kind of plant, and Euglena can move by itself like animal. Euglena has both plant and animal genes. Euglena can produce vegetable vitamins, dietary fiber, animal proteins, fishy unsaturated dietary fatty acid, every different 59 types of nutrients Euglena can produce at one time. When you take Euglena powder, Euglena green smoothies, Euglena food items, you take 59 varieties of nutrients at one time, very useful for the human being and solving the malnutrition problem in developing countries. And we have several different types of Euglena. Some kind of Euglena can produce a lot of vitamins in their body, and the other special strains can produce a huge amount of lipid and wax in their body. And these waxes can be used as a feedstock for producing the second generation biodiesel fuel and the sustainable aviation fuel as well. And we can cultivate Euglena in a very special cultivation facility. We put special carbon dioxide condensed emitted gas from the thermal power plant or coal fire plant. We capture the emitted gas into the Euglena cultivation facility, and Euglena can do photosynthesis by absorbing and utilizing the huge amount of carbon dioxide emitted from the power plant, and the productivity it can be boosted when we put carbon dioxide condensed air to the Euglena cultivation or pool or facility. And next, please. In 1980s, a lot of scientists were interested in the cultivation of Euglena, but it's extremely difficult and impossible to keep the pure sanitized environment for the cultivation. It's extremely difficult to preventing from biological contamination. So they had to set up special facility like clean room you can see in the semiconductor factory, but it's very expensive. So we totally changed the method, and we invented the special cultivation liquid preventing from biological contamination in 2005, and set up the special facility in Okinawa, the most southern part of Japan, because we need a lot of huge amount of sunlight for the photosynthesis. And the current factory is located in Okinawa, southern part of Japan. And we became the first company for succeeding the mass cultivation of Euglena for commercial use. And as I said, we did IPO 2012 and 2014. Currently in Japan, there are 3,000 startup companies are there. On the other hand, there are 800 universities in Japan, and counting from 2005, 3,000 startups, venture companies are originated from the Japanese universities. And we became the first company to be upgraded to the first section of Tokyo Stock Exchange 2014. And we were proudly awarded as the Prime Minister Award in the Japan Venture Awards 2014. And 4 years later, 2018, we were selected as the IP Achievement Award from the METI, Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry Award. We have filed applications for basic technologies for biofuel production using Euglena in part in 14 countries worldwide that may produce biofuels in the future. It was highly evaluated by the company, by the government, and the patent network was constructed by obtaining patents in Japan, the United States, China, Australia, Southeast Asian countries, etc. And next, please. We do 3 businesses. The first one is the healthcare business. We produce very healthy items. And the next, we produce the biofuel, second generation biodiesel fuel and sustainable aviation fuel. And we do social business in Bangladesh currently. This slide shows the overviews of Euglena Group businesses. And let's move on to the next slide and why I'm focusing on the biofuel. Today, I'd like to talk about this one. Why are renewable fuel useful for environment measures? The use of fossil fuels has caused global warming, you know. The 1 liter fossil fuels, when you burn it, you gain the energy and emit roughly 2.6 kilograms of carbon dioxide emitted from the burning of the fossil fuel. But when you use the renewable biofuel like Euglena and other plants can do photosynthesis, we absorb the carbon dioxide roughly 2.6 kilograms for the photosynthesis, and we produce renewable biofuel extracted from the Euglena's body as used as a feedstock. We use the wax and lipid extract in their body and can be produced as a biodiesel fuel and sustainable aviation fuel as well. And next slide, please. We started this project producing second generation biofuel and sustainable aviation fuel since 2015. And currently, we set up the pilot plant in Yokohama, very close to the Tokyo Haneda International Airport, and produce the last year, we have started for providing the biodiesel fuel and sustainable aviation fuel. Next slide, please. The Euglena's, the company's original product, we produce Susteo. Susteo stands for the sustainable oil. And the major product is, the first one is next generation or renewable diesel fuel. You know, the first is the development of technology. Until now, in Japan, only 5% of conventional first generation biofuel in Japan can be used due to government regulations. The reason for this is that using more than 5% biofuel increases the failure rate and makes it impossible to comply with exhaust gas regulations. In 2020, however, Euglena has succeeded in developing a next generation biodiesel fuel that doesn't break down even when 100% biofuel is used, and that complies with exhaust gas regulations, of course. Susteo, the company's next generation of biofuel, is the first biofuel that can be used 100% of the time instead of just 5%, according to JIS, Japan Industrial Standard, and legal requirements as well. And the next, lastly, biofuel will also be explained. There is no standard for biojet fuel in Japan. Therefore, biojet fuel, sustainable aviation fuel that has been approved in the United States can be used in Japan. There are 5 approved biojet fuel production methods according to ASTM, American Society for Testing and Materials standards in the United States. Eventually, last year, Euglena's biojet fuel production method was newly approved by ASTM as the 6th production method. Then, interestingly, just 2 days after the approval in the United States, the Japanese government, the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transportation, and Tourism approved Susteo jet for use in airplanes in Japan. In June of the last year, we flew a Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport, and Tourism-owned aircraft and a Honda jet, private jet on biojet fuel. Next slide, please. The last remaining issue is, of course, cost, production cost. Susteo, sustainable oil, the cost is 100 times more expensive than crude oil-based conventional kerosene and diesel fuel. But I'm extremely optimistic. The mission of a startup company is to turn 0 into 1. Japan's first airplane to fly on Euglena. As we expand our plant, the economics of scale will drive down dramatically our costs, and we will be able to deliver our products to you at a reasonable price in the near future, specifically in 2025. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention, and we have a strong confidence to realize the carbon neutral society by 2050. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Izumo, thank you very much. Now, we would like to have Q&A session. Dr. Kwakwa, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Izumo. And I should like to ask you, in your capacity as founder and president of Euglena, are there any initiatives that Euglena is pursuing to meet the 1.5 degrees Celsius target by 2030 and to realize carbon neutrality using intellectual property?
Sure. Thank you, Edward. We aim to contribute to carbon neutral through the development of biofuel. We have been licensed by the special refinery process developed by Chevron and Applied Research Associates, Inc., regardless of the technology developed in-house to achieve the goal. So we have a strong confidence to achieve the carbon neutrality by 2030 and 2050 by using every kind of technologies and IP strategies, some kind of a joint IP project and R&D project as well. So we do everything for achieving the SDGs. So we are aiming to contribute through the every perspective of the technologies and IP strategies as well.
Thank you very much. If I can ask a second final question. My question is, joint products can be conducted in collaboration with multiple parties based on intellectual property rights, including patent rights, of course. So what are the points of concern when conducting a joint project using patent rights that are held by Euglena and using the Euglena cultivation method? And also, what are the key points in proceeding with a joint project? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very important point. So there are 2 points to note, I think. The first one is to apply for a patent for the technology developed in-house, of course, before starting the joint project. And the other is to make it possible to apply independently for a patent for cultivating Euglena cells itself. And the point of proceeding a joint research project is to understand and respect the purpose of other companies' participation in the joint project as well. And finally, I'd like to touch the special point is that until now, we have studied why why Japanese venture companies, the startups have not been successful. We found that despite the great technology, patents, intellectual properties were not being utilized at all in Japan, especially Japanese universities originated startups. Therefore, I've decided to hire a patent attorney when we had less than five employees, because I knew that patent attorneys were very important and key driver when growing a startup. So I think it was very good that we have always worked with our patent attorney to create a roadmap for joint research and development since the company was launched. That's a point, I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. IZUMO. Very clear. I think we can conclude that intellectual property underpins carbon neutral innovations, and it clearly makes the companies using them, such as Euglena, even more competitive. So thank you again, and back to you, JPO. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. IZUMO, and then the Dr. Kwakwa. Now, we'd like to introduce the next speaker, who is Dr. Andreas Schuster, co-founder and CTO of Orkan Energy AG of Europe. We'd like to introduce next speaker, Dr. Schuster.
Yeah, dear ladies and gentlemen, warm welcome from Germany to my presentation. First of all, we will see a short film about Orkan Energy, a short introduction, and later on I will go into details and explain you a little our way from a spin-off to a global energy player.
Hi, we are two Andreases of Orkan Energy, a leading clean tech company here in Europe, based in Munich, and we try to tap the largest so far unused energy source in the world, waste heat.
Yeah, we both met at the university in our times where we did research on small-scale organic Rankine cycle systems. We showed that those systems can be built small-scale, they can be built up very cost-efficient, and can operate dynamically. And based on these results, we decided as a team to spin off Orkan Energy from the Technical University of Munich.
We want to contribute to the global energy revolution, and we want to do that by providing clean electricity at the lowest possible cost. Because at the current system, we believe the economic driving force has to be respected, otherwise you generate no impact. And we want to generate impact. We want to help especially emerging markets and process industries to become cleaner now, today. So we are currently active in 3 market segments: power generation, marine, and industry. And in all of them, waste heat is a costly byproduct. So, for example, we try to help ships to become more efficient, more cleaner. We just have installed and commissioned and put into operation our products in a vessel in the Wattenmeer. And there, the ships can save up to 260,000 liters of fuel per year per ship. So I think a really good impact that we can generate there. Or also we can help engines to become more efficient by tapping the hot flue gases of the engines and eject cooling water. But also processes such as the cement industry can be tapped, and this is by far one of the largest CO2 emitting industries worldwide. And I think that is a great example. We will have to use concrete for the next time to do our buildings. But we have to do that more efficiently and more economic friendly.
So let's start. Should I take the screen? Let's take this one. So in doing so, I can use the pointer. Yeah, you have seen now a short introduction into Orkan Energy. My co-founder, Andreas Schuster, can you see my screen now? Yes, you can see it. He mentioned already what our vision is. So we want to provide clean electricity for the global energy revolution at the lowest possible cost. How do we want to achieve this? How we want to do this? We integrated our mission already in the company's name, Orkan, an abbreviation, Organic Rankine Cycle Application Efficiency. This is what we want to do. We want to apply a specific technology, the ORC technology, to make different applications more efficient. Those applications can be found in mainly 3 segments. Industrial applications, always production steps or industries where a lot of energy at high temperature is used to transform or produce goods. The waste heat can be harvested and recycled into electrical energy. So one example was already given, the cement industry, but also refineries, oil and gas production, metallurgy, steel production are other examples where our technology can be applied. In marine systems, it's clear. So the propulsion of the ship is done by a combustion engine, delivering exhaust gas and jacket cooling water, which can be transformed into additional electricity. But there are also other engines on the ship, so the so-called gensets, to provide electricity, which can also be adapted and linked to an organic Rankine cycle to increase the efficiency. In some regions, the same technology, combustion engines are used to produce land-based electricity, like it is the case in emerging countries. You see here an engine power plant where also our organic Rankine cycle units have been attached to. In power production, we also look on geothermal applications where we harvest hot water coming from the underground. Common to all those applications is that an ORC is saving cost, is reducing carbon emissions, and is increasing the efficiency of this application. The question now is, when this market is so big, so why was there no technology? So the ORC itself is a proven technology, but up to now, it was not available for the mass market. We did not reinvent, let's say, this cycle completely, but we built it in another way. So we used, as it was already explained by Mr. Rowan, standardized components. We took components from the industry shelf to apply them in our ORC. So what you see here is the functioning principle of our product. So let's start here with the liquid working fluid. It is pressurized by a pump. The high pressure liquid is going to an evaporator where the heat is fed into the system. The waste heat can be of different form, can be gasiform like exhaust gas or vapor. It can be liquid like jacket cooling water or hot liquids from production, or it can be the combination of gas and liquid, like it's the case for the combustion engines. This heat then is used in the evaporator to preheat and evaporate the working fluid, and is then going to the expander. The expander is fed by high pressure vapor, is turned, is put into rotation where electricity is produced in the generator. The pressure loses temperature and pressure and goes as low pressure vapor to the condenser where it's liquefied and fed into the feed pump again. The main interest of the customer is electricity, but he can also be provided with hot water or hot air if he needs it for heating purposes, for example, or for drying goods or heating greenhouses, whatever. where did we start? How did we go from Germany into our neighbor nations and into the world? So we started in Germany with first installations of our product in the biogas environment, where we harvested waste heat from biogas engines. Then we went into the European surrounding, where we found also those applications. We adapted our system to be applicable for industrial applications. The next big step then was to go international. And we did this not on our own. So the step to Asia was done together with a joint venture company or in form of a joint venture company where we brought in intellectual property, partner companies brought in money. So we formed a joint venture, which then produced, installed, and commissioned our products in Asia, namely in China and in Myanmar. North America, Canada is the most recent step. The same holds true for marine applications in the big power range. Also there, we gave out or we licensed our technology to one of the biggest marine suppliers, Alfa Laval, which are selling our product under their brand, ePowerpack. Let me give you some insight how this technology can look like, how it can be scaled in the market. You've already seen this photo in the introductory slide. You see here a photo of the world premiere, the first big installation we realized in Myanmar. You see 70 combustion engines on the left and on the right-hand side, turning natural gas into electricity, but providing waste heat in form of exhaust gas and jacket cooling water. This is harvested by a waste heat exchanger and transferred as hot water to our ORC modules, which produce up to 5 megawatt of electricity, which is sufficient to feed 120,000 people with carbon-free electricity. In the same way, we economize or avoid up to 17,000 tons of CO2. What have been the key factors to be successful in the market from the university to the global player? So in founding and funding the companies, it's very important to be aware of the power of IP before funding, to do the right decisions at the early phase, to create the basis for investing companies into your venture. It must be possible that the IP is transferred from the university to the young company, because it's a very important asset. And you need, for sure, for funding the company, a vital venture capital ecosystem, or governmental funds and grant money which support your venture. The next step when going into the market, you need a stable entry market. You need this stable market to prove the commercial feasibility, so that you can show that customers pay money for your product. And very helpful was in our time to get grant money to buffer risks which are still in the product when you develop it. Going into the industrialization, we also went into production partnerships. So we did not produce all our systems on our own. So the prototype and pre-series, yes, but the big numbers are also today produced by production partners. You need IP as a protective instrument so that your partner cannot walk away with your product. I already explained that we entered regional markets, especially Asia, with partners using IP as an asset. Regulatory aspects can accelerate the entry into the market, like laws or regulations, which are favorable for your technology, as it was in the first stage of our company the case in the German biogas market. But later on, the regulations changed quickly, and this hindered then the market penetration in especially this segment. And last not least, when you look for further growth, when you have proven that you can commercialize your products, but when you want to accelerate this, you can license it. Licensing of the technology needs IP as a basis for license agreement. This is easy to understand. And also distribution partnerships need a protective instrument so that partners go into those partnerships. So we, for example, partnered together with E.ON for industrial applications. So E.ON is marketing our products in Germany and Europe. And last not least, so maybe not the last, but the next step into growth would be an IPO or a trade sale. And there for sure, IP is needed to protect your market and also your margin. So to sum up, the key factors for a successful way from an invention to an innovation to a global use product is a strong IP portfolio, are stable and supportive regulations, and for sure, access to funds. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we now like to entertain questions. So maybe Dr. Kwakwa has will present these questions.
Thank you very much. Dr. Schuster, co-founder and CTO of Orkan Energy. I know you have just explained to us key factors for successful innovation, but I was also wondering how important were patents for Orkan when spinning out from university and starting to commercialize research results?
Yeah, in the very beginning, you need IP to attract investors. So this is a very important step. In our case, IP was seen as a mandatory asset, and ownership of the IP was seen as mandatory. So we have been in the position to negotiate with the university to get this IP into the company, but it was like a chicken egg problem. So we needed money to buy out the IP from the university, but we needed the IP to get money from the investors. But in the end, we could solve this problem, incorporate, so take over the IP from the university, bring it into the company, and use it as an asset in the financing deal. In the next steps, the production partnership was a very important step where we went together with a global active contract manufacturer. And there it was, as you show, really the deepest details of your product to such a partner. IP is a very important protective measure so that you keep your technology in your company and make not to walk it away.
Thank you very much. Just a final follow-up question. Orkan has a rich portfolio, a rich intellectual property portfolio, I believe some 170 patents, as well as several trademarks. How have you adapted your intellectual property strategy as your business model has changed to that of a global player?
Yeah, in the very beginning, so when we made the first invention, they covered the core innovations, and we protected them in a broad manner, resulting also in wide local coverage. The more advanced the development got, the more the invention covered smaller sub-areas and details. This reflected then in a reduced local coverage. One option we see is to integrate ORCs into products. For example, to integrate it directly into a combustion engine like a turbocharger. So the IP created for this kind of application is then registered in countries where we find potential OEMs which could deploy such concepts and components. But most of our IP strategy stays still valid. For example, to facilitate inventors to easily file a substantial invention disclosure, close collaboration between our attorneys and the technical experts in the company to get good applications and also good answers then on in the granting process. And whenever possible, we want to have the control over our IP. So we do not like too much joint IP. So we want to have the control on our IP on ourselves.
Thank you very much, Dr. Schuster. Back to you, JPO.
Thank you, Mr. Schuster, Dr. Schuster and Dr. Kwakwa. Now, following on, we would like to have Mr. Steve Kastaros, founder and CEO of Nokero. So, Mr. Katsaros, floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Steve Katsaros, coming to you from Denver, Colorado, where it snowed last night. So we have a little bit of an environmental event going on here, but the slides are going to be controlled by JPO. So I'll just show you quickly. This is the main product that we're talking about, that is a solar light bulb. And so let's go ahead and go into the slides, if you would. Next slide. So part of my innovation story goes all the way back into college when this gentleman, who is Alan McDonald, taught at Purdue University. He and we won the National Inventors Hall of Fame Collegiate Invention Competition. And he always taught me, next slide, to tackle big problems. And if you could, presenter, whoever has control of the slides, to the next slide. And that's exactly what I've been doing for my career, 30 years at this. I'm a US patent agent, and I'm a trusted expert on all matters of IP. And one of the big problems, next slide, that I tackled starting in 2010 was that 1.2 billion people around the world live without access to electricity. These individuals are relying on the last energy source that they can find, which is kerosene. This equates to about $30 billion of kerosene, or kero, that's burned for lighting. Next slide. This is a dangerous process in that kerosene is distributed very informally in bottles and baggies. Little ones accidentally grab the bottles and drink out of them. And if you live without electricity, you're 6 times more likely to die by fire. So this is an expensive, dangerous problem, and it's so important, next slide, that we created NoKero, which stands for no kerosene. It's a solar light bulb that I showed you before. Next slide. And 1 day's charge provides 15 hours of light at night. These hours of light at night are utilized in the same way that us Westerners, I don't want to say Westerners, let's say in the global north or the developed countries, we're just simply trying to carry on and conduct life after the sun sets. Next slide. So we've created a whole line of products that we're eager to distribute. Next slide. And in the end, what our small renewable products do is they deliver the hope and security of light at night, whether it's in countries where there's environmental based events like hurricanes. I remember we did some work in Japan after the typhoon, not the typhoon, but the earthquake in Hiroshima. Not Hiroshima, I'm sorry, the nuclear plant. But moving on, we've distributed to the next slide. We've sold 2 million of these lights into 120 countries. We've improved 10 million lives, but we're really just getting started. Next slide. Yet, this simple, small solar light has captured the imagination of so many around the world. And we've even found our way to the floor of the General Assembly Hall at the United Nations. Those are all Nokero lights there. Next slide. And we've even received, and this is an important takeaway from for those attending this panel, is that the United States Patent and Trademark Office has a Patents for Humanity program. And, you know, recognizing inventors as they go through their long time, their difficult journey is really important, not only with the award of a patent grant in a reasonable amount of time, but the ability to enforce, and then just the support. So as a result, we've really become friends with the USPTO, and we're appreciative of that. We have patents that have coverage in 48 countries. Next slide, please. And we've even succeeded at enforcing our patents in China. That's our team right there on the top right that did some contingency-based work for us, because every product that is successful is destined to be copied. And as a matter of fact, that's what we want as society. But until we're ready to put those rights into the public, we want the ability to exclude others. Next slide, please. Nokero is currently on pause, and I know this is a bit of a disruption to this, but you'll understand why in the next slides here. It's just the global supply chain and the markets that we were targeting were really challenging. After 10 years of work and some IP missteps that we had, I'm doing something new personally. So next slide. In this big transition of my personal effort on a daily basis, because I will get back to Nokero, there's some great ideas there. I've stumbled across this patent, or excuse me, this journal called The Bright Side of Patents. And it finally put some data behind what I believed in my heart to be true about the value of patents to startups and why we even go through the effort. And as you can see in these small icons summarizing this other seminal document, going through 45,000 patents, is that if you have a strong patent portfolio that issues early, you will have more employees, your revenue is greater, you're twice as likely to go through some type of an exit event, whether that's income, raising capital through an IPO and going public, or just simply being funded. As you can see, 53% increase in VC investment. Now, this was introduced to me, this document, from a friend, Molly Kosialski at Denver's Patent and Trademark Office. And it became a big part of the next. So if you go to the next slide, I have been very focused on representing Project Canary as their patent agent. I think it's important to point out that Project Canary I'm not an employee. I'm their practitioner of record, and I serve their IP needs since before they were even founded. But what they're focused on is reversing climate change through just measuring and mitigating the emissions of unspent hydrocarbons. And in the next slide, if you would go to the next slide, you'll see that there's these air quality measuring units. And on the inside of that box is a VOC, so methane detector. There's an anemometer, solar panel, and the SUMA canister is useful for capturing just samples on site when there's a leak event. So where these are installed are at oil wells and oil facilities. Next slide. And it provides rich data that's sent out by telemetry. And we have a lot of back-end machine learning and AI that is not only detecting that there are emissions leaking at a site, but the total quantity of that, because the EPA estimates are off by a factor of 10. And real-time leak events can completely overwhelm just standard operating events. So we have a dashboard, and each client can get notified if there is an event and initiate a truck roll to go and fix. Next slide, please. I've basically shared the view of this on the top level, but we're here for the patents. So next slide is that even though this company is just over 2.5 years old, we already have 7 US issued patents. We have 3 additional pending patents with issued claims or with allowed claims. We have healthy PCT strategy, including 1 foreign national application right now. So we've utilized some of our best in class processes to get patents to award early. Next slide. So when we compare Nokero and Project Canary, Nokero is working on a longer timeline. I will get back to that. It will become a huge success, but we were practicing stodgy law. We went through very traditional process to procure our patents, and the patents didn't grant until 4 years later after initial filing of a provisional and then going through a PCT program and then national filing. And while we wound up with this robust patent portfolio, time marched on and a lot of competitors followed us. And so what I did at Project Canary is completely different. Oh, and we raised $2.5 million at Nokero. Well, at Project Canary, the story has been, let's get our patents as quick as we can. And I'm proud to announce that 2 weeks ago, we raised $111 million in the US. So at the end, the 80 growing to 160 employees, the patent portfolio that is now standing at 7, that's growing to 70 over the next 2 years. All of this is really supporting and motivating investors to join our movement. And that's the single most important side of IP. It's next slide. For me, it's not about, a patent, traditional practitioner will say, oh, I'll give you the right to exclude others from using, selling, importing the invention as claimed. But for me, it's just to flex a bit and to show your technical prowess and to establish that, yes, we are here, we're serious players, and we're going to own the market. And so with that, I know that we have some questions. We probably just go back to my video, and thank you all for your time and your interest in environmental solutions that are backed by IP.
Mr. Kotosaurus, thank you very much. Now we would like to move on to Q&A session. Dr. Kwakwa, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Katsaros. I was struck by one of the slides you just showed us. Of course, you are founder and CEO, Nokero. And I noticed that you were granted the Patents for Humanity Award from the USPTO 2013. Yes. And this for bringing affordable renewable energy to Kenya and other parts of the globe. And my question is, given that, as you put it, you are a relatively small business based in Colorado, what motivated you to expand your innovative technology areas outside the United States?
Yeah, well, the target market for these small solar lights is the 1.2 billion people that live in rural communities around the world without access to electricity. So our single largest country where these have been distributed is Indonesia, followed with 500,000 units into sub-Saharan Africa. The support that the USPTO provided in issuing us or awarding us a Patents for Humanity award was really important in bringing attention to not only the problem, but to our solution. Other innovations that have occurred or that are occurring at the USPTO are the Track 1 Accelerated Examination Program, the work-share programs with Patent Prosecution Highway. And I think that there was a third component to your question about leveraging IP across these markets. So we were able to attract a lot of distributor interest and just through having patents that had granted in these foreign jurisdictions.
Great. By the way, congratulations on your fundraising in the last 2 weeks. And if I can just ask a final question, I know you've talked patents, but at what stage did patents play a role in the development of Nokero's technology?
Not exactly sure how to answer that because this is such a simple tech, slow tech product, but we were able to differentiate ourselves in the patent realm. We do have $30 million of infringement annually right now on our IP portfolio there. It's probably a little easier to talk about what it meant to Project Canary. And Project Canary, we're in a very competitive area, and the fact that we have patents that have awarded have shifted or steered this huge, I mean, that's a very large raise to our pursuit and not others without the patented technology. So it's been a big part of both companies, but more so with Project Canary, because our patents are granting in as little as 4 or 5 months. So we're really changing the game there.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Katsaros. Back to you, JPO.
Thank you very much, Mr. Katsaros and Dr. Kwakwa. Now we'd like to start the panel discussion. So in this session, we'd like to take into account the presentations as well as the QA. We would like to have a discussion amongst the moderators and then the Trilateral Patent Office and industry representatives. And we'd like to again ask Dr. Kwakwa to be the moderator.
Thank you very much. So today we are pleased to have panelists from industry and IP offices in Japan, in Europe, and in the United States of America. Apart from the fact that our panelists are all very well known, their biographies can be found on the website of this symposium. So I will dispense with the introductions and go straight to the discussion. So if I may, I'll start with JIPA. JIPA, and I will ask you, Euglena mentioned the fact that they have joint projects with other companies. And in this respect, Mr. Beku, president of JIPA, I want to know, in your own experience, do you happen to have any good examples of the effective use of intellectual property rights in collaboration with third parties?
Thank you very much, Dr. Kwakwa. I'm Beku of the JIPA. I am also in charge of this, the IP, the department of the Nissan Motors. So in the 90s, during the latter part of the 90s, hybrid vehicles were launched for the automobile industry. On the other hand, for Nissan Motors, we used the develop the electronic vehicle just depending upon the motor, but that the lithium-ion battery was lacking to the mount on the electric vehicle. So we had to partner with the electric device makers, and we built the joint ventures, and the mutual IPs were collected so that for electric vehicles, a suitable lithium-ion battery was developed together so that the electric vehicle was successfully launched by Nissan in 2010. So it took years, but still, it's a durable electric vehicle. Energy density is high. So it's optimal. A battery was successfully developed to be mounted on the electric vehicles. That's the strength of the automobile company, that is battery control and motor control capability. On the other hand, the electronic device companies has the electrode, as well as the electrode and electrolytes. Those technology are strong IP area of the electric companies. So together, between those two companies, at the breakthrough, a new value was created.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beku. Thank you for sharing this. It clearly sounds like open innovation is critical in the advancement of carbon neutral technologies. So with your permission, I'd like to move on to the JPO now. And we've been told, we know many companies were initially launched as startups. Indeed, we need many of these companies playing an active role to realize solutions to environmental issues and to make an active use of their intellectual property. So Mr. Fukuda, if I may, what kind of support is provided to startups in Japan?
Thank you very much, Dr. Kwakwa. As you pointed out, that on behalf of JPO, we believe that the startup companies are the driving force for the innovation, and they lack the technologies and the facilities so that their IP, that is the innovative ideas and their discoveries are the assets. But they might not be aware of the value of their own IP, or they are too busy trying to raise funds, and they cannot really cover the activities for the IP strategy. And for the startup companies that they have the venture capitalists and business leaders, but they might lack the lawyers and the patent lawyers, the experts of the IP. So that for the IP base is supported, provided by JPO for the startups. It's a portal site. It's called IP base. So it's a connecting site to communicate with the IP specialists, so they can gain the knowledge and information about this IP. So that at the IP base, that the basic information as well as case studies contents are delivered. And for the startups, we organize numerous these seminars on IP, so that we offer the forum where that the IP experts and those companies can be connected and communicating. We do have this IP Accelerator acceleration program for startups. It's called IPAS, and then business leaders and the IP specialists form this IP mentoring team, and this team is dispatched to these startup companies. The participants of these startup companies say that they have actually done this effective the IP utilization as well as funding and fundraising as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fukuda. I'm glad to hear you mention IPAS. We have a system in WIPO called IPAS, but it's certainly not in respect of startups. So thank you for that. If I may, I would now like to move on to the EPO. And Mr. Jan Menier, if you are here with us, my question is, what exactly are carbon mitigation technologies? And do we see enough innovation in these technologies?
Well, thank you. And that's an important question indeed. And that's one of the questions that we have tried to address in this joint study with the International Energy Agency that was mentioned by our Vice President Steve Rowan in introduction. So one way to respond is to distinguish between three main categories of low carbon technologies. There are technologies related to the production of low carbon energy, renewables, but also biofuels, for instance. So this is important, of course, but in fact, not so big. It's less than 20% of all low energy patents. And most of the innovation is taking place on the demand side for energy efficiency, fuel switching. That's about 60% of the patents. And now there's a third important category, which we call enabling or cross-cutting technologies like batteries, smart grids, carbon capture, or hydrogen, that have the potential to transform many industries, and that will play an increasingly important role in transforming all sectors deeply towards low carbon energy, as they have been doing, for instance, in the car industry. And to answer your second question, so in the same study, we found, also mentioned by Steve earlier today, that actually in the 5 last years, the innovation in low carbon energy has been increasing, while it was decreasing for the first time since World War II in fossil fuel energy. But the pace is not that high. It's about 3% per year on average. It was about 12% per year on average in the beginning of this century. So we need to go faster. And that reflects the challenge of transforming more deeply a large number of industries after having starting to do that with the car industry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Menier. Now I'll quickly skip over to Business Europe. Mr. Jacques Beauvais, good to see you are with us. And my question to you, sir, what are the key factors to bring these technologies to market? And in particular, can intellectual property also play a facilitating role in this respect?
Yes, in its early days, well before reaching the market, any innovation is like a baby, very fragile, and so requesting protection. Patents are the only tool to protect technologies. And because innovation also needs time to be mature enough to reach the market, filing patents is a way to buy some time while keeping others away of your design. And from the previous presentations, so you ask about key factors to bring technologies to the market. From the previous presentations, I see two aspects that should have a consequence on a patent strategy. Firstly, an early exposure to the market to learn from reactions of potential users. But please never do that without filing a patent first, claiming the basic features of your technology. And secondly, the holistic approach of the innovation process, working on products, on manufacturing processes, on material used, on all enabling technologies. So down the road, the innovator will invent improvements, will work on many different aspects that can be subject to additional protection. So how can IP play a facilitating role? Well, it's of paramount importance to patent all the various aspects of innovation, new applications, and so on and so on. So in short, remember that having only one or a few patents is rarely sufficient. As other presentations already made it very clear, if you want that IP plays an efficient role to reach the market, you need to take different angles and develop a robust cluster of patents. If you don't do that, you will facilitate the job of the followers. And now a couple of quick additional comments on the different ways to make use of your patent portfolio. Either the patents will help you maintaining what makes your product so unique for the customers. This is often called the exclusivity. Or you can broaden the use of your innovation thanks to licensing. And here again, patents offer a strong basis for licensing out. But the two can be combined, of course, and it is up to the patent proprietors to take the decision. The patent proprietors must remain free to decide on its own business strategy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beauvais. Now I'm trying to catch up the time, so let me immediately move on to USPTO. And here, Dr. Toole, the question is to you. So we've heard a lot about patents already. And again, I'm just reminding us all, economists have studied the patent system for decades. What do you think, what role does intellectual property play in innovation? And what evidence do you have, Dr. Toole, to support this?
Well, thank you, Dr. Kwakwa. I appreciate the opportunity, and I will be brief with my comments. I want to mention three things. One is that I've been inspired by the presentations today, and they focused on one of the most important economic aspects of intellectual property, and that is the ability to trade the property or transfer the property through licensing and or sale and buying it. So secondary markets are critical for intellectual property. And intellectual property actually facilitates the sale and transfer of technology by not only certifying that that technology is passed in the case of patents, is passed the criteria for patentability, but it also allows different buyers and sellers to communicate with each other about the technology in a standardized format. So the role of a patent is multifaceted in licensing. I would also like to mention, the second thing I would like to mention this morning is that the USPTO will be releasing a new report on the contribution of IP-intensive industries to the US economy. This report has been produced by other offices around the world, and our report will be released today, and I'm just happy to tell you that that the IP-intensive industries, those that use intellectual property more than average, contribute $7.8 trillion or 41% to US goods and services production, and they produced 47 or support 47.2 million or 33% of US employment, both of those numbers for 2019, which is the most recent date. And so I think that's a very critical thing to note. And let me just finalize my comments here by highlighting what Mr. Steve Katsaros pointed out. He talked about a working paper that came out of this office, the Office of the Chief Economist, called The Bright Side of Patents. And that shows, unlike the industry study that I'm talking about, that shows more of a causal analysis about how intellectual property helps the sales, employment, and actual venture capital funding received by companies. That is a published article now in the Journal of Finance. It's peer-reviewed, and but I do appreciate him mentioning that. It's been a very important study for us. Thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity to comment.
Thank you very much, Dr. Toole, and thank you for giving us heads up on the statistics in the report to be released. I assume it's still morning your time, so we get a bit of a heads up before those who are waking up to the report. Thank you. If I can now skip on to AIPLA, and that's a question to Mr. Petit. What role do patents play, Mr. Petit, in the allocation of investments in green technology? We've been talking patents. Now the question is specifically in the allocation of investments in green technology.
Well, thank you. My company, USG Corporation, and our colleague companies in the Knopf Group are the industry leaders in our part of the construction material manufacturing industry worldwide. And reducing carbon-based energy sources has always been important to our business as a cost measure, just good business practice. But today, sustainability and reduction of carbon-based energy usage is one of the top priorities of USG and the Knopf Group overall. Patents play a critical role in those efforts because our patent portfolio, as we've heard from other speakers, is part of ensuring that the investment in these technologies will provide a return to our management that allows them to continue to fund these initiatives. And we've also seen that our investment in our green technology and our patent portfolio has caused our competitors also to be forced, if they're not already doing this, to be forced to invest in green technology in order to keep up with us. So they are looking at our patent portfolio, realizing that they'll have to develop their own innovations in order to maintain equal footing in the markets, not only in North America, but also in every region throughout the world where our technologies have been implemented. And again, and that also, that implementation of our technology stimulating not only benefits to each region where we're producing our materials, but also the competitive environment is key to having a strong patent portfolio.
Thank you so much, Mr. Petit. Thank you, very useful information. And now to our final speaker, Mr. Brody. Good to come to you finally, Mr. Brody. And my quick question to you is, what positive contributions have you seen patents play in the renewable energy industry?
Well, how much time do we have?
2 minutes.
I mean, this is a big topic, and I realize that we are already over time. I'll try to keep it as pithy and as short as possible. But it really is a big topic, and I could spend a lot of time on it. First, let me start by saying, a little bit about my business so you understand my perspective. So I'm with GE Renewable Energy, and it's a business focused on wind, the wind industries, onshore wind, offshore wind, blade technologies and development, also hydro, grid solutions and hybrids. So bringing everything together if you have different generation systems and managing that, and electrical storage as well within that hybrids technology group. And so that's the perspective that I'm coming from. And I'm also coming from a business that is part of a large organization, the General Electric Company Group, which is a publicly traded company. So we are obviously a for-profit organization and accountable to our investors. So we have to make renewable energy technologies work on also the economic side of this work. The first thing that I would point out is everybody likes to talk about the environment, and oftentimes they look at the practical, broad, sweeping sides of it. But from my perspective, and I look at it from the renewable energy, GE Renewable Energy side, it's really a technology company. At the end of the day, we're a technology company in the power industry, where that industry is moving towards renewable energy. And IP is a big part of our positioning. We could not protect and advance our technology without it. And that's why we spend, just renewable energy alone spends millions of dollars a year in procuring IP and also maintaining that IP. And then if we ever have to enforce our IP in our space, you know, those are costs in addition to that. So we take it very seriously. And the reason why we take it very seriously is we have large amounts of investments into the technology themselves. Research and development to bring the best technology to the world is not cheap, as I'm sure everybody can appreciate. So we want to protect those investments that drive this high technology area and that support high paying jobs, globally. And IP is the asset that allows us to do that. So as it's been mentioned many times, IP gives exclusivity to this cutting edge technologies such as advanced materials, additive manufacturing, jointed blade technologies for us. And it gives us a competitive advantage by distinguishing our product offerings to our customer base. And by the way, that's how we look at it, right? We look at what is important to our customers, which are the energy producers and managers, and what do they want to see from the original equipment manufacturers, which is what we are. And they want to see that we have new offerings that we can help them drive energy production in a cost-efficient manner, and that we're bringing to leverage the best technologies available, of course, at a cheap cost to them. And one of the things to do that, the way we do that is to have established IP and technology that brings trust, that brings credibility to the table. And it's really hard to play in the wind industry in particular if you don't have that position. I think also it really encourages the adoption of our technologies. So in some cases, we want a period of exclusivity. In other cases, we want our technologies to be adopted broadly. So we have what we call a G-cubed gas technology that is to replace that we're hoping is going to replace the FS6 greenhouse gas that is used in switchgears and other electrical systems that creates a lot of, that is not very environmentally friendly, I guess is the way I'll say it. And others are working on these same problems. So we're bringing our technologies together in various cross-licensing agreements, and that ensures us the freedom to operate, to bring to bear that hopefully will be a widely adopted and ubiquitous solution that's adopted in the industry. Eventually, something has to replace FS6, and we're hoping that one of these technologies will do that. It also encourages what I would say more innovation in the industry and brings efficiency to the table. So as part of our process, and we know our competitors do the same thing, we take third-party IP positions very seriously. That means we design around their IP positions and their innovation, which leads us to have our own innovations, and it leads them to come up with their own innovations to address the same problems, thus offering multiple and different solutions to the industry and customers to choose from. So I really think that's a big value add. Sometimes the engineering groups, don't like to have to take on that extra work, but that's part of the trade-off, and I do think it really adds to the landscape of innovation. it also is a way to have a very crowded field that takes IP seriously to pressure test real innovations. I think many of us know that in certain industries, IP maybe got a little bit out of control, and there were some questionable patent portfolios that have issued over time. You know, the renewable energy industry is very active in this space. And at any given time, particularly in Europe, we'll have a lot of offensive oppositions challenging the patents of our competitors. And likewise, they will challenge our patents in similar proceedings, including IPRs and the like in the United States or other nullity proceedings to try to improve freedom to operate for them or for us, depending on who's doing the challenging. And you know, sometimes a party will succeed in their petition, and sometimes they will not. But what it really does, it affirms those inventions that really have contribution to the field of technology and invalidates those that really shouldn't be there, that's improperly blocking access to the adoption of technology. So I think by taking IP seriously and being very active in the space, it actually leads to much better quality IP out there. And you know the IP that you either have to design around or negotiate a license for. The other part that IP has a positive impact on is doing consortiums, participating in standards committee, and then also getting government funding for new projects. IP is always a big part of the discussion for any of those activities. And those activities are very important to get funding to advance technologies in an efficient manner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brody. Very fitting finale to this. Let me again apologize to our panelists. They've all had such engaging presentations and discussions. We would have loved to have more time for follow-up, but unfortunately, we are already way over time. We've seen this afternoon, our time, this morning, your time, examples of innovative companies. Of course, it's evening Japan time. We've seen examples of innovative companies in Japan, the US, and in Europe contributing to solve environmental and social issues and to achieve carbon neutrality. Now, we all know in order to achieve the goal of limiting global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius, preferably to 1.5 degrees, as per the Paris Agreement, it's going to be critical to foster global innovation ecosystems and to support innovators in their use of intellectual property. We at WIPO, for our part, are committed to cooperating with intellectual property users and cooperating with IP offices toward realizing this vision. On behalf of WIPO, let me again thank all our panelists and our presenters, as well as you, the participants, for a stimulating discussion and for your attention. And we again thank the JPO, the EPO, and the USPTO for putting this together. And now I now have the pleasure to hand over back to you, JPO, for Commissioner MORI. Thank you. JPO, over to you.
Thank you very much, participants, for your inputs. Now we would like to have a closing remark from Commissioner MORI of JPL. Commissioner MORI, floor is yours.
Thank you, Kwakwa-san, for the good moderator. Thank you very much. And first of all, I would like to thank all of those involved in holding today's symposium, including the speakers. I believe that meaningful discussions were made among industries, the IP offices, and WIPO on the possibility of utilizing intellectual property rights towards the development and dissemination of carbon neutral technology. Now, I would like to recap this symposium. First, from Japan, Mr. IZUMO, founder and president of Euglena, presented on the topic of a unique biojet fuel development project using a microorganism called Euglena. It was very impressive to hear that Euglena is making good use of the patent system to carry out such project from the start. Venture companies like Euglena has unlimited potential in bringing new technologies to the world. Maximizing the vitality of such companies is an important role of the IP system. This must be the key to achieving carbon neutrality. Then from Europe, Dr. Schuster, CTO of Orkan Energy, presented a power generation system that utilizes the energy of unused industrial waste heat sources in companies in various industrial fields. I found it very interesting that Orkan Energy, like Euglena, shares the same future, being a university-launched startup venture. We believe that Orkan Energy's story of how they used their IP to successfully expand internationally has provided us with some very important insights. This story is so important because carbon neutrality is an issue that must be tackled on a global scale. From the US, Mr. Katsaros, CEO of Nokero, presented an episode of developing a low-cost, environmentally friendly, high-efficiency solar-powered LED to improve the lifestyles of the world's undeveloped populations who still live without access to electricity and rely on traditional kerosene lamps. In this topic, we heard about Nokero's successful use of international IP frameworks, such as the Patent Cooperation Treaty. I believe that we, the IP offices, have learned an important lesson that we must not only develop our own domestic system, but also cooperate with each other across borders. The panel discussed, moderated by Dr. Kwakwa, ADG of WIPO, featured knowledge and insights in line with today's theme. Thank you, Edward-san. From industries, Mr. Beku Tomonori of JIPA, and Mr. Jack Barber of BE, and Mr. Philip Petty of APRA, and Mr. Sang-Yang Brody of IPO participated in the discussions. From the Trilateral offices, Dr. Yan Menier of the EPO and Dr. Andrew Toole of the USPTO, and my colleague, Mr. Fukuda Satoshi of the JPO also joined it. Various perspectives were presented, and I believe everyone agreed that IP plays an essential role in solving environmental issues. As mentioned above, through today's symposium, we were able to reaffirm that the IP system is contributing to achieving carbon neutrality. This is exactly what we, the Trilateral offices, want. I always keep my eyes on the activities by the USPTO and the EPO. As for the USPTO, on March the 8th, International Women's Day, under the leadership of the USPTO, a message was issued jointly by 20 IP offices and organizations, including the JPO and the EPO and WIPO. The message suggests that contributing of women are critical in creating new technologies for mitigating the impact of climate change. And the EPO is disseminating a lot of information on the unitary patent system, and the JPO is paying a great deal of attention to it. The regime is expected to enter into force in the near future, and I believe that this will improve convenience for many users. Thus, with the Trilateral offices, we'll continue to work closely with WIPO and other IP offices to think about how IP offices can contribute to the IP aspects of the environmental issues, which is a very important problem common to all humankind. We believe that this will promote the development and diffusion of carbon neutral technologies and contribute to the realization of carbon neutral society. Once again, I'd like to extend my appreciation to all members of the audience, speakers, and those involved for joining the Trilateral Symposium on IP and environmental issues. Thank you very much. Et au revoir. Thank you very much, and good night. Thank you very much.
With this, we would like to conclude today's symposium. Thank you very much for staying with us till the end of the program. This is the end of the translation. Thank you very much.